Hello everyone, and welcome to my review of El Camino. Before I say anything, I just want to say, yes, that is Paper Mario music in the background. I wasn't really sure what music to use. Honestly, in my most recent videos, which I like to think were a little more high quality than my usual, which isn't saying much, but still. Anyways though, I do like the idea of having music in the background. Makes things feel less lifeless, I guess. Anyways, today I'm going to be reviewing El Camino. Seems pretty fitting since I've ranked all the episodes Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul already. And I gotta say, thank you for all the views on those videos. I really didn't expect it that much. I mean, I know the shows are very popular now, especially with Better Call Saul's ending, but I really do appreciate it. I legitimately think the Better Call Saul video was the longest video I've ever made, and the hardest one to work on, but still a lot of fun. Anyways, this video isn't going to be nearly as long, but let's get into the movie. So I don't actually have a script for this, but I have seen the movie twice, so yeah, it's kind of gonna be a free discussion. Anyways, might as well get into it. So El Camino released in 2019, and as the title suggests, it's a Breaking Bad movie. It takes place after the series finished, and without further ado, I guess I should probably say, yeah, there's spoilers. Anyways, though, throughout the movie, we see Jesse's adventure as he tries to flee Albuquerque. So, I'm not going to recap the whole series, but I will tell you some previous events, and like I said, spoilers. Watch the movie, and both shows yourself. They're incredible. Anyways, though, so in El Camino, or at least in Breaking Bad, we see Walter's return back to Albuquerque after he leaves to New Hampshire. This happened after the death of Hank, and Jack's gang taking Jesse hostage and making him cook meth. So now we have Walter returning to Albuquerque after he went to disappear along with Saul, who became the manager of Cinnabon in Omaha. Walt goes to New Hampshire near the end of the series, but then he returns. And we get to see a bunch of crazy stuff happening, including Walter visiting Skyler, managing to get the money to Junior, although it's far after he's dead, through Gretchen and Elliot. We get to see him finally. We get to see him meeting with Lydia and Todd, and we see him meeting with Uncle Jack. And as he pulls out the M60 machine gun from his car, using the car keys, all the people in the gang are killed, including Todd and Jack. In addition to this, Lydia is also poisoned using the ricin that the writers hinted at for a long time, which is pretty cool. Anyways, though, the movie kicks off right off. Well, not exactly. After the death of Walt and Jesse's fleeing the compound where he was held hostage for about half a year or so. Anyways, though, the movie starts off with a flashback. And there's a particular point, and it's right after the death of Drew Sharp, the unfortunate young boy who's on the motorcycle after the train heist in Dead Freight. So I believe this occurs around halfway through season 5, and it's when Jesse meets with Mike by Riverside, the same place where Mike actually dies, and he talks to him about what they're gonna do with their share of the $5 million of selling out the methylamine from the train heist. And Jesse asks Mike where he'd go, and he says it doesn't really matter since he's not him. But he does tell him he'd go to Alaska, which is pretty interesting. I'd like to make the connection that Jesse going to Alaska, Walt going to New Hampshire, and Saul going to Nebraska, they're all going to areas with snow. And I think this is kind of because the disappearer refers to his clients, the criminals, as being hot, meaning how much they're being tracked or their crimes, so they'll want to cool down, which is pretty interesting. Anyways, though, beyond that, in the scene, we're left with a really nice final line by Mike, where Jesse tells him that he'd finally have a chance to start fresh living up there, and Mike tells him, "Sorry, kid, that's the one thing you can never do." I think it's a fantastic scene because, as expanded in Better Call Saul, we see Mike lose his morality and his moral codes, and he soon begins to realize that he's no better than any other criminal. It's a wonderful way to start off the movie, and of course, there are definitely a lot of flashbacks. People criticize this, but personally, I definitely think it adds to it. The only problem I have with them is they do feel a little jarring as the way they jump through. Like, at least in the final episodes of Better Call Saul, we have the difference in colors where before we would have colors, which makes it more jarring to see because we're getting a glimpse into the past. But now it's not like, too clear at first. Anyways, though, it's still great. So I think it goes without saying that Aaron Paul, aka Jesse Pinkman, is an incredible actor here, and we really get the understanding of this person who was just a young kid who fell into this business, and was now finally free after a month of being held hostage. Anyways, though, after that, the movie makes an abrupt cut to Jesse's escape. When he's screaming in maybe joy, I'm not too sure. I think relief, maybe, as he finally escapes the compound. Now, the police are hot on his tail, and so what he does is he goes to his best friend Skinny Pete and Badger's house. They don't really recognize him at first because he has so much hair, so he ends up shaving and taking a shower. And it's really unfortunate, as he has some trauma from being washed down with a hose as he takes a shower. The movie definitely dives into Jesse's inner psyche, which is absolutely a great part of it. Anyways, though, they have a plan to be able to help out Jesse. Badger's gonna take the El Camino down to Mexico to make it think like Jesse's moving on there. Which, by the way, I really like how they mentioned that in Better Call Saul. It's great to see the film acknowledged through the show. Anyways, though, we also see Jesse getting Skinny Pete's hat, which is really nice of him, and he says he's his hero. It's a really nice thing to see, honestly. Anyways, though, after that, Jesse tries to get help from old Joe, the person who helped get rid of the RV and the whole magnet scene, which is pretty cool, at the beginning of season 5. So what they're trying to do now is find a way for Jesse to be free, but obviously it's going to be pretty hard to do that since, the police are everywhere. Now, Jesse did use the disappearance service before. Well, not really. He paid for it, but it didn't actually happen. So he has a plan to do this. Anyways, we also get to see another flashback. This time it's a look back into Todd. Todd is an interesting character, to say the least. Now, the show obviously is incredible at each of its villains, I guess you could call them, and because they really are much more complex than just being villains. There's a lot of investment you get into them, and you see a lot of good and bad sides, and there are times where you're rooting for them, other times you're not. But what makes Todd stands out is he takes no enjoyment. Enjoyment in all the crimes and all the murders he commits. We see this especially clearly, not just here in the movie, but also all the way back to his first kill we saw. All the way back to killing Drew Sharp, the poor young boy. Anyways, though, we see Todd is pretty emotionless, which is interesting because we do see some emotion in him by liking Lydia, which is kind of funny in a weird way. Anyways, though, like I said, Todd definitely is a bit of a cutthroat psychopath, but that also makes him pretty interesting. Anyways, though, we get a flashback scene where Jesse was taken into Todd's apartment, and during the time he was held hostage. And we see him needing Jesse's help to get rid of his cleaning lady, Sonia's body, because she found some of the money he had in one of his encyclopedias. It's a pretty grim scene, and we just get the idea of how Todd is as a character. Even though at this point, obviously, he's dead, it's still really jarring to see a flashback with him in it. Now, people have complained that Todd could have lost a little weight for the movie, and I kind of get what that would be distracting, but I honestly didn't mind too much. Anyways, though, Todd takes him out into the desert, and Jesse breaks down as he takes a gun out of his glove compartment, and he almost kills him. But Todd manages to escape the situation very narrowly, might I add, and by offering some pizza and beers. It's a pretty sad scene to see eating Jesse in this state. Anyways, though, and during the present, we see Jesse looking for the money, and obviously Todd is at least smart enough to not keep it in the same place. So he raids the apartment, and we get a really cool bird's eye view shot of him looking at all the different rooms in the apartment. The show is definitely no stranger to great cuts and I guess amend action shots. I don't know if this would count as an action shot, but it's still pretty cool. Anyways, though, Jesse finally manages to find the money inside the fridge door, which is pretty cool. But there are two cops, quote unquote cops. They're actually fake cops, Neil and Casey from a welding company that Jesse remembers. Now they take a third of the money. Jesse only gets a third. So Jesse goes to the disappearer and using some of the money from the fridge, and as well from Badger and Skinny Pete, who by the way got the money because Walter gave it to them in Felina, the Breaking Bad finale. The reason? Because they were the two best hitmen of the west of the Mississippi. Pretty cool callback. Anyways, though, Jesse has to pay double since he technically missed the last time, because what happened there was Jesse figured out that Walt was the one who poisoned Brock, who is the son of his ex-girlfriend's and he goes there, and it kind of reminds me of Mike saying with this whole full measures, half measures speech, because we get the idea that Jesse kind of took a half measure there, and it would have been much better if he actually left town. Anyways, though, now he's just $1,800 short. So what's he gonna do? Well, Jesse makes a phone call to his parents, and he tells them that he was going to be planning a pickup state. Oh, also this is reminding me, I completely forgot, but Jesse, earlier in the movie, under an overpass, he hears a news report on what happens, talking about the death of Walter White and Jack's gang, as well as Todd, and we even hear about Lydia being in the hospital. It really is crazy and surreal to hear all this. It's interesting to see Jesse's reaction. He doesn't exactly look sad, but he's definitely shocked. Anyways, though, beyond this, I know I've been saying that a lot. Jesse calls his parents. It's because earlier in the movie, during the radio, we see his parents suggesting he turn himself in. So he tells them he's going to, and plans a pickup site on a park he used to visit with them a lot. But he actually goes into their house, and he gets 2 guns from the safe. However, before that happens, he tells his parents that it wasn't their fault for what happened. It's a pretty devastating, but also heartwarming in a weird way. I'm not sure how to put it. Anyways, though, we get a flashback showing just exactly who Neil and Casey, those fake cops, were. Apparently, their welding company was what made Jesse attached to the compound, or the outside kind of, I'm not sure what you'd call it, that kept Jesse cooking there. It's a really sad thing to see, as we see Jesse pretty much tortured there, by having to run back and forth through and hurting himself. Anyways, though, Jesse challenges Neil and Casey to a duel, and this is easily my favorite moment of the film. It's pretty intense to see, but Jesse, using his 2 guns and using his wits, manages to kill both Neil and Casey, who tries to run away. He also tells the other guys off, and he sets the whole place on fire with propane tanks, which is pretty crazy. Anyways, though, we get yet another flashback of Jess, and this one might just be the film's most famous. And this one takes place directly after 4 Days Out, basically the episode in season 2 where Jesse and Walt were out in the desert for 4 days cooking. And they decide to go to a Denny's, which is funny since I'm pretty sure that's what they said. And they have a really interesting conversation, Jesse and Walt here. I know, before I could talk about that though, people have said that Walt's bald cap is very noticeable, since at the time I think he was doing something else that required his hair. But I have to say, he still did an amazing performance, because, come on, Bryan Cranston's amazing. Anyways though, we get some really interesting lines here, and we really get a glimpse back into old Jesse, which is great to see, because this Jesse is much more hardened, although still lovable, and definitely has a soft heart. Anyways though, we see back then, Walt telling Jesse what he would really do if he went back to college. You talk about business school, and Walt tells Jesse that he's lucky, because he didn't have to wait his whole life to do something special. It's a pretty fantastic line, and a great glimpse into who Walt is as a character. This was definitely the thing he waited his whole life to do, even if he didn't know it. Like people have said, even though Walt lived 50 years of his life in misery, it seems, he got 2 years of thrilling, devastating moments. But he was truly alive, like he says. Pretty amazing. Anyways, though, we finally get to see Jesse in Alaska. After the duel and being able to get in the other thirds of the money, Jesse is finally able to start a new life as Mr. Driscoll. And I have a feeling that unlike Saul or Walt, he's really going to stick to this. Now, people have interpreted what exactly Jesse is going to do, but before I get into that, I just want to talk about some other things. Jesse doesn't have anyone to talk to at this point. I mean, think about it. He can't really talk to his parents. Obviously, Walt's dead, and anyone else in the criminal gang he really can't communicate with. Even Skinny Pete and Badger is best friends. Anyways, though, we see that there is one person he wants to talk to. It's a letter for Brock. After his mother was unfortunately killed by Todd, we get to see just a really nice glimpse, although not really nice at all. It's hard to describe it. Obviously, you feel bad for Brock after all that happened, and he was pretty much threatened by Jesse that if he escapes again, like he did in one of the last episodes, that he would be killed too, alongside Andrea, his mother. It's really tragic to see, and although we don't get to see what's in the letter, maybe that makes it better. I can't even imagine what would be in there, but probably a lot of grief and sadness and apologies. Anyways, though, as Jesse drives off into the Alaskan snow, we get one last flashback, and this one might just be the best. We get a flashback all the way back to season 2, when Jesse's old girlfriend, Jane, his late girlfriend. We get a scene. Now, Jane was talking about going where the universe takes you, and that was like her philosophy. But now she says that she's changed it. And now it's more about making the decisions for yourself. And as we see Jesse driving off in the film, we get a nice smile from him. He may not be happy, and this is definitely not how he wanted to keep on living. And like Mike said, he isn't exactly going to get rid of all of his past. But at the very least, he is free. Now, I know not everyone loves this movie, of course. I mean, I know that there are definitely some issues with it. The flashbacks definitely do jump a lot, and people have said the film's unnecessary. But Jesse, being as important, as an amazing character as he was, he absolutely deserved something like this. And it was really well done. The flashbacks were really great. There was some wonderful writing and high-stakes scenes. If I did have to complain, I guess I wish to get to see more of Alaska, but I like the interpretation. Speaking of which, like I said earlier, people have thought that he would be a woodworker, because we had the whole story about how he traded some wood he made in the rehab group. And honestly, I think that seems to be the most likely thing. There are actually some theories from the creator, Vince Gilligan. But wherever Jesse is, at least we know it's free. If I had to rate this movie, I feel it would be unfair to just call it a standalone movie, since it really feels like the 63rd episode of the show. But if I did have to say, I would probably give it an 8, maybe an 8.5. It's a really great film. Not exactly perfect, and I wouldn't say it compares to some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, but it's still a pretty great movie. Anyways, though, thank you for watching, and have a good day.